Have you ever spent decades trying to keep the peace with someone who, no matter how much patience or kindness you showed, always made you feel less certain, less valued, and more alone? You told yourself if you were just more patient, more loving, more understanding, they'd finally treat you with respect. But they never did. Hi, I'm Vernon again. And today, I will show you why you'll never win with a narcissist, and what you can do instead to take back your peace. This isn't about blame. It's about clarity. It's about reclaiming the quiet strength you've always had, but perhaps forgot you deserved. We'll explore why nothing you say or do ever seems to be enough with narcissists, and I'll share the grounded, liberating steps that can help you break free and rebuild the self-worth that was always yours. If you've ever felt drained, manipulated, or quietly made to question yourself, and a part of that still lingers gently within you, you should watch this video until the end. Because sometimes facing the truth, as painful as it may be, is often the fastest path through the hurt. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It's a small gesture, but it means the world to someone like me, an old soul past 60, still finding meaning in sharing what I've learned. Your support gives me the courage to keep believing in the value of these quiet conversations. Now, let's begin with a truth that many of us learn far too late, and often at great emotional cost. Number 1. You can't win a rigged game, step out instead. Let me speak plainly. This is not something I read in a book or heard from someone else. It is something life etched into me, year after year, through quiet disappointments and long conversations that always seemed to end in silence. In my early 60s, I found myself still caught in a relationship that never truly gave back what I put in. I had known this person for decades. I loved them deeply. And because of that love, I stayed longer than I should have. I believed that if I just explained myself better, if I was more generous with my understanding, they would see me, but they never did. What I offered as peace was seen as surrender. What I gave as love became a tool they used to keep the upper hand. Every conversation turned into a maze where nothing made sense unless it favored them. And I remember sitting in my armchair one evening, feeling not angry, but hollow, that kind of tired that seeps into the bones. I remembered a passage I had read many times but never truly understood until that moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." It made me realize that for all those years, I had been offering truth to someone who only traded in illusion. I kept returning to a game I had never agreed to, trying to win peace with tools like compassion and patience while they played with pride and manipulation. It dawned on me that I had not just been misunderstood, I had been misused. That kind of awakening does not arrive with a flash. It seeps in like a quiet understanding, and when it does, it leaves no room for denial. The person I kept trying to please was not interested in harmony. They were interested in power, and the more I tried to earn their approval, the more I confirmed their control. That was not love. That was captivity of the heart. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't announce anything. I just quietly began to choose myself. I stopped defending. I stopped hoping for apologies that would never come. I started setting gentle but immovable boundaries. Disengaging is not cruel. It is choosing peace over chaos. It is understanding that someone who thrives on making you question yourself is not someone you can reason with. And more importantly, they are not someone you owe your peace to. This shift didn't come with fanfare, but it brought back something I thought I had lost to time: dignity, stillness, self-respect. You are never too old to begin again. Never too old to stop explaining and start living with quiet strength. You are never too old to begin again. never too old to stop explaining and start living with quiet strength. And once you've taken that first step inward, it becomes possible to see the patterns for what they are, not as puzzles to solve, but as cycles to step out of. Let's look now at one of the most subtle and dangerous patterns of all. Number 2. Gaslighting is not misunderstanding. It's erosion. Have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, maybe it really was my fault, even when deep down something felt wrong? Have you ever second-guessed a memory so many times that you started to believe it never happened at all? This is the invisible power of gaslighting, and it cuts deep, especially as we grow older. You begin to doubt not just what you remember, but who you are. And over time, those small doubts become walls that separate you from your own truth. A narcissist doesn't distort reality by accident. They do it with purpose, because if you begin to question yourself, you'll lean more on them. You'll try harder to prove your worth. And that effort keeps you tethered to a game you never asked to play. True clarity comes when you understand this. You are not confused because you are aging. You are confused because someone benefits from your doubt. And you do not owe them your clarity, your energy, or your peace. As the philosopher Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself. And to be your own master, you must reclaim the right to trust your memory, your instincts, and your lived experience." If you've ever had your reality twisted by someone you trusted, I invite you to share your story in the comments. Have you ever faced someone who made you question the truth of your own experience? You're not alone, and your voice matters here. I want to tell you about a moment that shook me deeply. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. I had simply misplaced my glasses again, and I asked if anyone had seen them. The response I got was laughter. Not the warm kind, but the kind that makes your shoulders sink. "You really are getting worse, aren't you?" they said, smiling just enough to make it seem like a joke. That's how gaslighting begins. Not with shouting, but with subtle, repeated nudges that make you question your memory, your stability, your worth. And if you're over 60, like me, you know how frightening it can be when someone weaponizes your age, turning normal forgetfulness into a reason to doubt yourself. For years, I brushed those moments off. I told myself I was being too sensitive. I tried harder to remember everything, to double-check, to keep the peace. But the more I did, the more unsure I became, not of the facts, but of myself. Gaslighting is not a misunderstanding. It is a strategy, a slow erosion of confidence, designed to keep you off balance and dependent. As the ancient Greek philosopher Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But how can you be master of yourself if someone keeps rewriting your reality? If any of this feels familiar to you, if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling smaller, foggier, unsure of what just happened, that is not a flaw in you. That is a tactic being used on you. The first step to freedom is naming it. Gaslighting, not confusion, not a lapse, a tool of control. And once you see it, you no longer have to answer to it. And once you see it, you no longer have to answer to it. Because truth, once named, becomes the beginning of freedom. And when your truth is no longer hidden beneath someone else's version of reality, you can finally choose to live on your terms again. Let's move now to the next way narcissists maintain control, and the emotional roller coaster that keeps so many people silently stuck. Number 3, the kindness trap. Why moments of warmth keep you hooked. One of the most painful things about being caught in a narcissistic dynamic isn't the insults or the outbursts. It's the moments that seem kind, the unexpected tenderness, the rare compliment, the quiet moment when they seem to see you, just enough to make you stay. This is the kindness trap, and it is, perhaps, the most dangerous illusion of all. Because it gives you hope. It convinces you that maybe, just maybe, things are changing. That all the pain was leading to this soft place. And now you're finally being rewarded. But real kindness isn't rare. It doesn't come as a reward for your suffering. It doesn't follow cruelty. And it never asks you to forget what hurt you. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, a cycle of confusion where love is unpredictable and tied to compliance. But if you're over 60, like many of us, you may know it by a different name: surviving. Surviving in relationships where you had to make excuses, where you held on to crumbs because you were taught that any affection was better than none. But that is not love. That is emotional dependency. And it is built on the lie that your worth is tied to how well you endure mistreatment. In the later chapters of our lives, something inside us begins to settle, and we start to see what truly matters. We stop measuring relationships by how long they've lasted and start looking at how they make us feel in the quiet moments. We begin to crave a peace that doesn't need to be earned, love that doesn't ask us to shrink, and connection that feels safe, not unpredictable. The ache of inconsistency becomes heavier with age. It doesn't just disturb the mind, it disrupts the spirit. And when kindness is dangled like a reward after conflict, it creates a dangerous confusion. Are they changing? Or am I just hoping again? Peace should not arrive only after you've been hurt. Love should not feel like a test of how much pain you're willing to carry. And tenderness that only comes when you're pulling away is not proof of care. It's a strategy to keep you close enough to control. As Aristotle once said, we are what we repeatedly do. If a person's pattern is to wound, then comfort, only to wound again. It is not kindness. It is control cloaked in ritual. What we allow becomes what we live. And if we do not name the pattern, we end up calling suffering loyalty. But loyalty without safety is not virtue. It is self-abandonment. Kindness that only appears when you're slipping away is not love. It's manipulation dressed as mercy. It is not your duty to stay for the moments of tenderness when those moments are built to erase the wounds they helped create. You are allowed to step away from anyone who makes love feel like a gamble. And when you do, you are not walking away from the relationship. You are walking back to yourself. So, what can you do when you recognize this trap? You name it. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You begin to measure love not by how deeply it hurts, but by how gently it stays. And most of all, you let the silence between outbursts speak louder than the brief apologies that follow them. Conclusion. Your life is not a bargaining chip. What we've explored in this video is not simply how narcissists operate, but how quietly we lose ourselves trying to keep the peace with them. These patterns may seem subtle, but their cost is heavy. Your clarity, your confidence, your time. When you've lived long enough, you learn that peace is not something others hand you. It's something you must choose, especially when someone has convinced you that love and pain are a package deal. You don't owe your loyalty to someone who thrives on your confusion. You don't need to wait for someone else's permission to begin your healing. You don't need one more apology, one more reason, or one more conversation that only leaves you more lost than before. As Seneca once said, no man was ever wise by chance. Wisdom begins the moment you stop accepting pain as proof of love and start seeing truth as the path to your own peace. What you need is one clear decision to take your power back. Let this be that moment. Walk away from the game. Reclaim your boundaries. Trust your instincts. And most of all, give yourself permission to feel safe again. You deserve that. Not because you've suffered enough, but because you exist. If this video gave you even a small moment of clarity, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps this message reach someone who may still be in the dark, waiting for the words they didn't know they needed. And I'm Vernon. Thanks for watching my video.